So the world is ending, apparently. You may have heard about an asteroid called Apophis, which was, for a few days many years ago, considered a risk for colliding with the Earth in the year 2029. And it is going to come uncomfortably close, but not close enough to actually hit. A shithead called Thomas Horn, however, was on Jim Bakker's show the other day to promote the Apophis theory because, some people insist on believing that there's some sort of cover-up going on around it. This is a rather nice artist's impression via the Planetary Society of Apophis, of which we don't actually have proper pictures. It actually scooted past the Earth just a few weeks ago, and it's going to pass very close by on April 13th, 2029. So, just under 8 years from now. Within about 20,000 miles this time rather than 20 million. It's not going to hit us. In fact, within just a few days of the very first announcement of its existence in 2004, the possibility of it actually hitting us had already been ruled out, and NASA have further ruled out the possibility of Apophis hitting us in 2036 and 2068 as well, those being the other 2 years of the century when some said it might possibly hit. We apparently don't need to worry about it for another 100 years or so. Of course, there's other asteroids out there that we don't know about that could still be a risk, but that's another story. Thomas Horn doesn't seem to care about this. As far as he's concerned, the Great Tribulation will apparently begin in 2025, and Apophis will come as sort of the midpoint of that event, bringing with it viruses and shit that are even more powerful than the present pandemic. And the Antichrist will come about as a result because, for some reason, this one man will be the only person on Earth who's naturally immune to this alien virus, so his blood will be turned into a vaccine to inoculate all of humanity. And apparently Apophis is why Donald Trump created that space force of his as well. Thomas Horn is a fucking crank, in the way that only American conspiracy theorists seem capable of being. If you look at his range of books on Amazon, you'll soon see just how deep the stupidity runs. Here's just a quick partial sample. I mean, I'm not making any great claims to intelligence myself. I am not a scientist by any means, but I am fairly sure of one thing. Even if Apophis is aimed at us and it's packing heat, those viruses will probably be the least of humanity's problems. Because I expect they'd be wiped out in the atmosphere. Things entering the Earth's atmosphere tend to get extremely hot and burn up. If the whole asteroid made it to the ground, or even if it broke up in the air, it would still be enough to screw the planet sideways by itself without any viruses helping it. The Tunguska event of 1908 is generally thought to have been an asteroid about 100 metres across, and Apophis is about 3 times the size of that, so it would hurt if it hit us. Which it's evidently not going to do, whatever Tom Horn wants you to believe. I mean, I hate right-wing grifters as a general rule, but Horn is the sort that I hate the most because he's exploiting religious people who don't know much about this sort of thing. So they see headlines like, asteroids have possibly hit Earth, and they panic, and then pricks like Tom Horn make bank off them by exploiting that fear and selling them books that tell them the Antichrist, who they're always on the lookout for, is coming as a result of this asteroid. Personally, for some reason, I'm most galled by the fact that he calls Apophis the asteroid prophesied in the Book of Revelation. No, it fucking isn't, Tom. Wormwood is specifically called a star in Revelation, not an asteroid. The lunatic who wrote that book didn't know what an asteroid was. Anyway, Tom Horn is well at home on the Jim Bakker show, on which he's been a guest several times, and I must admit to liking this screenshot from the interview. This is Jim Bakker on the left. Horn on the right has just spoken his bit, and Bakker pauses for 2 seconds before responding, because he's clearly baffled as hell by what his guest is raving about. This isn't the only unusually weird conversation he's had lately, though. Just a few days before this, he was talking to someone called Steve Quayle, and his thesis is that what we really need to worry about is demonically possessed cannibal zombies. I have to include a clip of the video which comes via Right Wing Watch.
Zombies also have the evil spiritual entity known as demon possession, okay? Because there is no rationale with a zombie. The best way to explain zombies' bloodlust is this: the appetite of demons expressed through humans. It should be astonishing to people that the richest people in the world, not all of them, but some of them, are into occult ceremonies where they have to drink, blood that's extracted from a tortured child. Now that's sick, but that's the appetite of demons expressed through humans. The whole subject of zombies could be just boiled down at one end to a genetically modified human that is no longer human on the level that you and I or a living being is. Then that corpse, that walking and animated, there's a better word, it's not living, an animated corpse is possessed by a demonic entity.
I took a screen grab of the front page of Steve's website and, and that's only the top part of the atrocity, by the way. I wasn't going to screenshot the rest of it. Personally, I think the only zombies we need to worry about are the ones funding these thieving pricks, but that's just me. I do wonder sometimes how Jim Bakker feels having to hang out with people like this, because he was one of the most important figures in American Christianity back in the day. He co-founded the Trinity Broadcasting Network, which is still the biggest thing of its kind in the world, and he was, frankly, screwed out of pretty much everything he'd built up by Jerry Falwell, who strikes me as a far more genuinely bad person than Bakker. So for him to be in the position he's in now after all his legal issues should be kind of humbling, and I suspect that when the cameras are off, on some level he knows what he's doing is nonsense and he hates himself for doing it. But having said all that, I still can't feel sorry for him as such, because he is still doing it. He's platforming clowns like Horn and Quayle, and he's exploiting his audience and their fears of the apocalypse. I mean, I'm not a Christian, so I'm kind of perplexed that people who are Christian take this sort of thing seriously. I can only look at it with some sort of detachment and irony. But me not understanding a thing doesn't mean it's not a thing. I may not get it, but the people who believe it do get it, and Bakker knows this, and he sees money in them there people. He may not have been as bad as Falwell, but he still wasn't really a good person in the 70s and 80s. His behaviour was criminal, and it is largely his fault that he is where he is now. He kind of deserves every bad thing that comes to him. Anyway, I'll end on a positive note by recommending a related film, that being The Eyes of Tammy Faye. This is a documentary that came out in 2000 about the former Mrs. Bakker, Tammy Faye. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend it very strongly. It basically transformed my own view of Tammy Faye Bakker, who I had suspected was about as crooked as her husband. But in reality, she was actually a far more interesting character in a lot of ways, and she deserved a lot better than Jim Bakker. That's it for this episode of Inanimate Carbon God. Until next time, bye for now.